Greetings world, we are anonymous. Psychometric Killshot, the psychology of pole manipulation. You are probably very familiar with the media's fixation on polling. The polls are up. The polls are down. Hillary is winning by a little. Hillary is winning by a lot. Even if you're not paying all that much attention, it can be nerve-wracking. That's by design. The psychological use of polling is a very discreet and very arcane, occult science that deals with how our minds process information. If you're ready for a trip down the rabbit hole, let's dive in. If you want to terrify a pollster, try talking to them in this language. It's a kind of deep state illuminated secret, and publishing it like this has almost never been done before. If they see it out in the open, you'll get a shocked denial, followed by them running for the hills. Just try it. The science of NLP psychometry. Psychometry is the science of measuring cognitive processes. Generally it's meant as an umbrella term for things like IQ tests or personality tests, things like that. However, the dark side of psychometry is neurolinguistic psychometry, or studying how our brains measure things. Here is a visual example. As you can see, the human mind comes with built-in blind spots and weaknesses around measurement, and NLP psychometry exploits them in various ways. This discipline, used only by master persuaders and marketers and some political operatives, is key to understanding how our world is shaped by the narrative and image makers who work unseen around us. Turning the unmeasured into the measured. The first task of the pollster, of our profession, which is essentially a statistician whose primary job is lying, is to take plain obvious facts and replace them with emotionally overpowering numbers. This is done by creating hard numbers for things like enthusiasm, support, and events in the future, such as voting. A rational person will tell you that a survey of 500 people cannot predict the behavior of tens of millions weeks in advance. But that's what pollsters do. They just trap it in unstructured linguistic obfuscation to create Gilem juggernauts, memetic demons, that serve as their invisible agents in our society. Unstructured linguistic obfuscation. ULO is the art of taking concrete concepts and layering specific kinds of language around the expression of them. So take, for example, a concrete concept like the color red. There might be different shades of red, but it's mostly all the same color. When you engage in ULO, your subject is treated to words they may not understand, like vermilion and analogies to different brands of apples and so forth, to the point where a concrete idea has become complicated and fuzzy. Everyone knows what red is. By the time we are talking about candy apple vermilion, you're no longer certain. In polling we see this in the use of this language right off the bat. When a pollster talks about a likely voter, they don't mean someone who is probably gonna vote no. They use things like self-reporting with some kind of scaling, or past voting history, or demographics likely to vote, something like that. It's never clear, and once you poke beneath the surface you get confused quickly. That's by design. The psychometric framework. Once you have prepared the field with ULO, the pollster is ready to create the psychometric framework. This is simply the art of putting a number on something to guide your understanding of it. Like the lines above, you can see that although they are all the same length, the truth, when you dress them in various endings, you create different perceptions. The pollster uses ULO to create a skew, D+9. Ask them what that really means, you'll get a ULO answer right away. And then by measuring it with their occult numerology, how does 538 create those pretty percentage graphs? Something called the model, which they won't explain. They give you the perception they want you to have. So you see a giant rally, a string of giant rallies with cheering throngs, but the numbers they dress it with show the person in the center. That's a psychometric kill shot. They gaslight you to undermine your own senses. A Gilem juggernaut. In occult symbology, a Gilem is an agent given life from dull matter. A juggernaut is a vehicle with the face of a god that crushes the bones of people in its path. The pollster creates these structures in the minds of their followers. The glum is the false perception that the psychometric framework upholds. It is the self-reinforcing idea that the poles are right. They show candidate are winning, so candidate must be winning because the poles are right. As with the occult golem, these thought forms must have a symbol on them to give them life. In this case, it is the polling average, which, as per Rollo, isn't actually an average at all, of course, that animates them. The juggernaut is in play when the golem is set in motion to destroy its enemies. Try arguing with a polist, someone who blindly believes the poles. They'll mock you. They link you to many different sources, that all say the same thing, so they must be right. Even if the polist has zero understanding of the techniques they're referring to, the weight of the expertise that purports to be behind this golem is the juggernaut. The golem has its own momentum and animation given to it by the worship of the masses, the mainstream media, so it can metaphorically crush the bones of those who try to argue. Try disputing polling online, you'll see what I mean. Memetic demons. Trump supporters talk about meme magic or the power of funny internet pictures to change the election and the world. It's meant to be funny, but how right they are. That's why the invisible power structure is so terrified of peep. The semesters have stumbled onto an arcane occult truth and they're using it. A memetic demon is a concept that has a control function built in, so it does the bidding of its creator. In this case, the polling narrative is controlled by numerology wizards like Nate Silver, and it does his bidding with each daily release of the magical graphs and charts. You can't take it away from him, because no one else has access to create those magical numbers, so if he wants to promote turnout in Georgia and suppress it in Florida, why look. The red and blue bars shrink and grow, and the juggernaut with the dark face of a demonic Hillary Clinton rolls ever onwards. Be careful using this information. So far as I know, no one has ever laid this out in public before, like a turncoat magician who reveals how he does his tricks. The polling society has long held these secrets behind the veil. They claim to be mathematicians when really they are math magic marketeers. If you accost them with these terms, you can be in for some very uncomfortable scrutiny. We are anonymous.